This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today I'm here with Maggie Sprenger of Green Cow Venture Capital. Maggie, thank you for joining us again.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Hey, so we talked previously about Green Cow Venture Capital. Can you give us an update?
Sure. We've invested in 9 companies, and it's been really interesting to watch how they've either been well-positioned or have adjusted slightly in light of the recent pandemic.
That's great. So tell us again about your investment thesis and what you guys are looking for and how you work.
Sure. It's actually been a good time for our investment thesis. We invest in seed stage companies that are using technologies like AI, machine learning, and robotics to solve problems of scarcity or inefficiency. And we're specifically looking for companies that we consider to be recession resilient. We started investing on the thesis more than 2 years ago, and we currently have 9 companies in the portfolio.
Great. Can you tell us about a few of those startups that are in your portfolio?
Of course, it's my favorite part. I'll try and frame it specifically around action since COVID started. Obviously, the pandemic is heartbreaking, but one of the silver linings for me has been watching the founders of the portfolio support their communities, develop products to help people, and even give away services because they know times are hard. So I'll start with one of the companies with a freebie, and that's Cloud Admin. Cloud Admin's a startup that was founded by a former gaming CTO at Zynga. And while he was there, he noticed that there wasn't a lot of transparency and understanding of cloud bills. This is a big deal for startups because it's often one of the most expensive P&L items, but it's also a big deal for major corporations who are now seeing cloud bills exceed $100 million annually. And this is certainly a space that's seen a huge increase since the start of shelter in place. So the founder, Powell, uses AI to match demand to supply without reducing optimization. For companies spending $7,000 a month or more on cloud, they're seeing savings of 50 to 70%. It's really impressive. Powell and his team have been developing great partnerships, like with Neptune Software. They signed a partnership deal a few months ago, and they're in the middle of shipping a white label integration into a multi-billion-dollar data centers portal. And as a response to the extra challenges companies are facing because of COVID, they're supporting the community by offering their service for 60 days for free, which I think is just awesome. I'm a huge fan of this company and the founder. Another example is Validate. Validate's an AI accounting platform that automates third-party verifications. This is massive for the accounting and audit space, which is obviously very busy right now as companies are adjusting cash flow management strategies and structuring loans. And this is a great example of a specific space that we forecasted would see increased demand under capital constraints and a really smart founding team poised to solve for the associated challenges. So we've seen their core business as well as their partnerships really expand. Some examples of that are that Validate now has a new opportunity with Amazon Financial Services. Amazon's pivoting to a more robust loan origination process where Validate can provide the revenue verification. They've been working with the state of Ohio's AG office, and new bankruptcy forecasts, unfortunately, indicate that the need for investigations, bankruptcy, audit services, all this will increase by about 2.5 times the pre-pandemic level for at least 4 years. So Validate's going to be very busy. And this idea all came from one of the founders, Todd, who was unraveling the biggest Ponzi scheme in Seattle's history and collaborating with technical serial founder and his friend Chris to solve the problem. Validate's great because it's a more accurate, faster, and much less expensive than other methodologies. Robotics companies, there's Blended. Its first product is in food automation. It's actually a robot that makes smoothies, and the videos of this are just incredible. They've been fielding a lot of interest right now around food automation from customers in various verticals, everything from entertainment parks, transportation hubs, corporate campuses, education. We think that automation is going to be much more top of mind in a post-COVID world, particularly around food. Speaking of companies with very cool videos, Freedom Robotics was created by 5 guys from MIT Media Labs. And they realized that robotics startups spend 80 to 90% of their resources, both in time and money, in early days developing the software for their robots rather than the robots themselves. What's more, a lot of engineers who are incredible on the hardware side aren't always as well equipped on the software side. So Freedom Robotics is a line of code that manages all the software needs, from the user interface to the back-end analytics for a robotics company. And they've been partnering with some really incredible ones. One is called KiwiBot, and it's a little robot that delivers vital goods to people during lockdown. They're also working with robots aiding efforts in hospitals, manufacturing, and more. So while people can't get into the factory, Freedom Robotics is designing solutions to help the work continue. Another one that I really love is Cushion AI. It's a personal CFO. So customers pay a yearly fee starting at just $36. One of the features of Cushion AI that I love is it advocates on behalf of the client to fight bank fees. So some customers have seen refunds of $100 to $500 within days of signing up, and people are staying around at home. So Cushion AI has been seeing a lot of great traction, and it's a nice way for people to have some extra money while they need it right now. They've been doing some incredible things on the data and tech side, but that's probably a deep dive best saved for later. And I'll end with one more company that's doing some heartwarming work. String AI is a future of work company that allows a cell phone number to be a smart work tool. And this is great in regulated industries like financial services and wealth management, because clients want to be able to just text their advisors, but that's regulatorily inadvisable. String makes that compliant because now the communication is indelible, it's searchable, and it's unique to the user. But what's been really cool to see is that this is also great for communities finding new ways to stay engaged. So String has seen everything from religious organizations to Meals on Wheels managing their volunteers in a new way using String. And from a growth perspective, just since the start of shelter in place, they've seen subscription revenues go up 40%, new subscriptions up 125%, and gross sales up 85%. So it's been really great to see these companies thriving as well as helping.
Those are some great startups, and you have a great investment thesis there. So what surprised you most about this sector?
Well, there are a lot of different ways to be a venture capitalist. My partner Vic and I have chosen a really community-centric approach, which is not what I would have picked when we started. I am a bit of an introvert, which is why it's so great that Vic is definitely not. But the community model in the beginning was really helpful because we have experts in our advisory network like Eleanor Heron, who can jump on a call and help a founder with a pricing model or talk through customer acquisitions or distributions. Before she was the CEO of FarmDrop, she was at Amazon for 17 years, and she's a wealth of information. So that was what we were leveraging at the start. But since the beginning of shelter in place, we've been doing virtual happy hours weekly, frequent check-ins. Some of them have content themes, like a guest will join for a quick PR tutorial. But a lot of it is just looking for synergies or suggesting customers or strategies and feeling a little bit happier at the end of the call because of the connectivity. We might be physically isolated, but we're definitely not alone. So the surprise, I thought I'd spend my days happily doing diligence and playing in Excel. And instead, I'm part of a group of people I really care deeply about. And I'm regularly reminded that we're better professionally and personally together. So I guess I didn't expect the sector to be so cheesy.
Wow, that's great. So what's your advice for people investing in this sector? What do you tell them to do before they write that check?
A lot of people are staying back from investing right now, which is really understandable. It feels scary out there, but there are also some really exciting opportunities. Some funds like ours are focused on recession resiliency and seeing very meaningful growth. I'm also seeing some interesting things happen in other verticals like real estate. While I would never encourage haste around any investment decision, I would definitely encourage people to be looking at the valuation dips as well as sectors that are seeing growth, because there are some extraordinary companies doing extraordinary things. And to be inactive out of fear or a lack of research is a huge missed opportunity.
You have some great companies there. What are they doing to help during the COVID-19 pandemic?
A number of the companies in the portfolio are creating partnerships to do everything from organized massive volunteer efforts to enabling robots cleaning hospitals. Going into 2020, the world wasn't thinking about a pandemic that would create adverse demand and adverse supply shocks. This virus and our self-imposed lockdowns are creating both of these. So I've been really inspired by our founders and their responses and seeing the opportunities that they are both seeing and creating.
So my question is always, what new investment theses are we going to get out of this COVID-19 pandemic, and what's going to continue? Obviously, it's accelerated a number of sectors of the marketplace like telemedicine, tele-distance learning, et cetera. And then some things are struggling. Those that require physical proximity and physical events are challenged. But do you think there's going to be a new set of investment theses that we'll be chasing afterwards? I guess what we'll call the new normal?
Absolutely. I think just in the future of work vertical, we're going to see a lot of companies have accelerated growth. And we're also going to see a lot of founders tackling problems and gaps that are starting to be identified as people are figuring out how to lead teams and manage production services remotely. I think we're also, as a consequence of this new idea that we don't have to be so centrally located, be looking at interesting integrations around home development and construction. So construction tends to be a bit of a lagging vertical when it comes to technical innovation. And I think that has the real opportunity to change as things like home offices and strategies around managing a much more house-centric existence continue to be something that drives innovation and thought for the next few years. I think another thing that we're going to see is simply a lot more automation across the board, whether it is the use of physical robots and how we're reinventing manufacturing to lessen that dependence upon people being physically at a plant, or whether it's using AI and machine learning to drive processes around those productions. I think that's a space that's so exciting and is just going to explode. Conversely, I know that there's going to be significant pushback from people who are nervous around losing jobs. And there may be real opportunities in the learning verticals, right? Remote learning, like we've seen in Coursera and Khan Academy and other online learning platforms, because not only will people have to retrain for new jobs out there, but we've also seen that campuses and education are vulnerable in a way that we would never have imagined 6 months ago. So I think actually so many things are rampant for a lot of disruption. There are going to be really significant opportunities in creating new things. And I think we're going to see a lot of things shutter and a lot of verticals no longer be so relevant.
All right. 6 months ago, as you mentioned, robotics and AI, they were coming to take our jobs. But when those jobs required quarantine workers and you have to work in meat packing plants where you can't social distance, it seems like AI and robotics starts to look like a good thing in taking jobs we don't want or can't have. And so you think that's going to improve the acceptability of those technologies? Whereas one point they were taking away our jobs, but now they're taking jobs we don't want to have.
I think that this pandemic has highlighted vulnerabilities in the supply chain and shown us that while consumers may not yet be prepared to pay the prices, this could be an opportunity to rethink how we approach consumerism. And certainly it's a critical moment to rethink how we're looking at logistics and supply chain. The current interdependence of the global system can be great from an economics theory perspective. But the reality is when it comes to managing a pandemic scaled world, or should we be facing another war, I think that there are vulnerabilities that we have an opportunity to address right now that we would be grateful to have done so in the future.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see people trade off a low-cost labor force for a secure supply chain. seeing a lot of interest in automation, supply chain visibility systems, and then securing it is going to be, I think, job one. And people are going to bring a lot of that back here and find multiple sources for products instead of relying upon just one. Just-in-time delivery, which sounded great for getting the cost down, is probably not the most efficient if your one supply source goes under. So I think we're going to see a big resurgence in that direction. Do you think we're going to see a lot more in the way of combinations of automation, robotics, and AI coming together? Right now, they seem to be three separate verticals just working independently, but to do some of this stuff requires a lot more integration and cohesion.
I absolutely think that's a trend. I think we're already seeing it with companies like Freedom Robotics, with companies like Blended that do use artificial intelligence layered into the robotic systems. I think that there would be no reason to not leverage the tools that we have to make that system much more efficient. We were looking at a company just the other day that's using sensors within existing factories to make the whole process more streamlined and more energy efficient. So I think people are already starting to think about how do we take existing structures and improve them for long-term capability, and how do we take best practices and best technologies and apply them for real competitive advantage.
Right. And the one thesis we didn't really touch on here around the pandemic is healthcare moving to the home. It was clearly a situation where if you try to put everybody into one building, a hospital, it doesn't work when everybody's coming in at the same time. It seemed like healthcare would have to move to the home and use other tools like personal monitoring devices, telehealth, and so forth. What do you think is going to happen there?
There's certainly a number of startups that are working to tackle this problem and provide options. We have seen technologies that are using sensors within the home to monitor everything from blood pressure to heart rate. There are certainly a number of wearables that are going to be able to provide real-time feedback both to the wearer and to a remote monitor. And I think that again, the pandemic has accelerated our acceptance of things that made us uncomfortable previously, like video calls with a doctor to talk through symptoms. I'm based here in Manhattan, and it's not possible to go to an ER right now. So when my child was sick, it was a matter of logging on with a remote doctor and talking through it. And that's something that I wouldn't have been comfortable with prior to this, but given that the alternative was going to an ER where I knew people were very, very ill with something highly contagious, this was a forced thing. And I think we will see people shifting. One of the other challenges that the US and other economies are facing are our older population and how they're aging in place or how they're interacting with family and caregivers, either at home or in nursing facilities, and to be able to better empower that user base, I think is also going to be a huge emerging field. It's already huge, but I think we're going to continue to see major traction in that space.
I agree. I think we're going to see a lot of major changes, and the normal is going to be what they now call a new normal. It will be out of lockdown, but it will certainly be different than before. But I think that's also a great opportunity for startups and for funds like yourself to help solve those problems.
Well, we will see. But yes, I see so many smart approaches to so many challenges. And I think it's a really exciting time to be in this space. Honestly, machine learning, AI, robotics, these are such powerful tools. And the opportunity to leverage these toward improving things, I think, is significant. I'm also hoping that we see more movement in the environmental space. We've had a nice moment of seeing how impactful our pollution is. And if we can tackle that, I think it would be amazing.
I agree. I thank you so much for joining us today. So how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Well, that's pretty easy. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Maggie Sprenger, or you can email me at Maggie, Maggie, at greencow.vc.
Great. We'll include those in the show notes. Thank you for joining us today, and appreciate the follow-up and looking forward to next steps with you as well.
It was a pleasure to connect as always. Take care.
Take care.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Hall T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.